look at us.
So exciting.
It is fun. This is so much fun. Well, we always enjoy chatting with each other, but it's nice to be able to chat about a certain topic, specific topic. And we can kind of that's kind of the way we can, frame our conversation today, which will be kind of fun to do. But before we do that, maybe we should let everyone know who you are. Who the hell are you, Paige? Tell me. No.
I was like, oh, really? We're going to start with that?
No, but I'll tell you though. So Paige is a good friend of mine. I met her in university, didn't we, Paige? We met because we studied engineering together.
And I'm hoping, or I'm wondering if you're going to tell any stories from engineering and about what you remember about me and what I remember about you.
Well, one thing about engineering, when you're a guy, you know who the girls are in engineering. So there weren't a lot of girls in engineering at that time, so you knew who they all were. I'm wondering, were you on the Saskatoon Engineering Students Society at all?
I was.
Because I was a first year rep, first year. That was my foray into politics. Were you in that group? I'm trying to think if you were or not.
I don't think I was in the first year, but then in the second year, I came on and did communications for the student society.
As your role. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know how we know each other, to be honest, Paige, or where we.
I think it's probably just from, I think it's from that space. And then I think it's also from, because I was friends with some of the geos. So
you were.
Like Rachel Sawyer and Mike McCrank. And I think
Rachel
that
Simpson.
was it. So,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and Mark Sawyer. So can I tell you my first really clear memory of you? I know, hey. Because I have a memory of you in engineering, becoming a friend, and then I've got a memory of you becoming my brother-in-law, right? So the engineering one is you were involved in student politics. I was involved in student politics, and I decided to run for president of the Engineering Student Society. I don't even know if you remember this. And so it was campaigning, and I ran against John Bowes. And you were more, right? You were more in the geo building. You weren't around as much in the engineering building.
Nope.
But I remember you came up to me and you said, I support you. I think you'd be great.
Well, that's nice.
I was like, it was really nice. And I don't know if you remember it, and I don't know if it matters if you remember it, but it meant so much to me of that Rob. Yeah. That Rob, he's a good guy.
Yeah. And I like John too. That's the thing, because John and I are actually friends too. We drank a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So you must have made a big impression on me. Made a big impression on me, or less of an impression than John did. One of the two.
Well,
but I knew who you were because we would have had classes together. So, but I remember you because you're ag bio engineering, agricultural bioresource engineering, and that I don't know if that's still there or if that it turned into environmental engineering or both, or if both disciplines are still there. But that's kind of what people who are interested in sort of more of an environmental bent to their engineering, that's what a lot of people went into. And so you took a mix of there's some biology type stuff and ag type stuff, but also civil engineering type programs. And so because I was a geophysics person, there was a bit of overlap with the core engineering programs that we had from second year onwards too. So in fact, actually, first year, I think we had a few classes together too, because they group people into different cohorts as well. And we had a lot of the core engineering classes together first year as well.
Yeah.
So years 1, 2, and into 3, we had a lot of classes, then we kind of moved off into our own little rounds. Although, I don't know, were you in my ethics class? I know Julie was in my ethics class. Because I remember this, we had a lot of arguments about ethical dilemmas that they always put.
If I wasn't in that class, I kind of wish I would have been, because that would have been fun to listen to the two of you.
Well, the scenarios.
I don't think I was.
Why would you displace an indigenous tribe? Building a road through here, And Julie, well, I know you can't be doing that. So, well, it's a road and it's pretty valuable.
Yeah. Those were the classes that I loved in engineering too, right? That debate and the impact of engineering. That was my jam.
I could see that. And actually, those lessons that you would have gone through, you can see within the book that you just wrote and the project you just went through. Because engineering, we talk about engineering quite a bit. It was about solving problems is what they tell them, but it's not about solving problems. It's about coming up with the best problem given these circumstances or the economic distribution of compromises might be a better way of putting it with engineering, because there is no right solution to engineering. There's the best solution given the compromises and the economics involved with everything. So what do you need based on materials, the goals of the project and all those types of things. So those ethics classes were really actually important to highlighting that. Because you can always come up with a solution, but it doesn't mean it's the right solution or the wise solution.
Well, I feel obliged to say that the right solution is one that's safe, obviously, but then beyond that, it's the looking at all the constraints and figuring out what's the best solution amongst those constraints, whether it's money or resources. And that's really where the fun, I think, comes in terms of like the creativity.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool that
you're not convinced.
I because I want to get into that, but we're going to get into that in a little bit. Let's talk about ourselves a little bit more. So I love the fact that we met through a political, or at least your recollections through a political situation at the university.
There you go. Started early.
Shocker, everybody! I was involved in student politics, and I paid attention to that stuff. So that was pretty cool. I'd met Amber through you for the first time in engineering as well too. I think I told you this before. It was during the design project presentations. So in engineering, I didn't have to do this. I didn't have a design component in my engineering program. That's why it's not an engineering program anymore.
Rob, I don't remember this story. I'm so excited now.
Yeah, it's pretty, I remember it. It's funny. Nobody else does. But I remember because you did your design project with Mike McGrath. And that was the one theater that they had in engineering on the main floor, whatever it was called. That's where the project designs were being presented. And so we all kind of gathered down there. We wanted to check it out. Our friends were given their designs and parents were invited and stuff like that. So I just happened to be standing near the front entrance and you were there. We were chatting a bit, and then your dad and your mom showed up. So that's the only time I ever met your dad was there.
Oh, I didn't remember that, Rob.
Yeah, I shook his hand. We chatted a little bit. It was nice. And then I remember your little sister was like, "Oh, who's this?" Hey, you've been holding out on me. So that's where
I wasn't ready for you, Rob.
No, well, I know. Well, and then this is another story too. But I'll tell you another story too as well that we both. How about this? You were in engineering. You did ag bio. And you got your degree, basically. After that, what did you do? Because you didn't go working right away, or not full time into the workforce.
No, I didn't. So that summer, I think I went down to Estevan that summer and worked again for an environmental consulting company in the oil patch. And then I wasn't ready to grow up, right? And take on all the full-time job and mortgage and responsibilities. So I packed up my stuff and went traveling for a year. So I traveled around the world by myself. And it was back then, right? 99. I remember using dial-up internet to research my trip. And so I went down to Argentina and Brazil, and then flew from there to India because that makes so much sense. And then from India, my trip allowed for a layover in Europe for an undisclosed amount of time. So I stopped in Europe for 3 months, and Amber actually flew over and met me, and the two of us traveled around Ireland together. And then we came she left, she flew back to Canada, and then I stayed for another 2 months or so. We went to Italy, and then Ireland, then Italy, and then I stayed and went on to Switzerland and saw some friends. So I was gone for about a year after graduating, and then came back, and like most people our age, made my way out west, and that's where the jobs were. So eventually ended up in Calgary.
Yeah, because that's one of my recollections with you, because we were casual friends in engineering, and then you came back and you were applying for a job, and you're at a hotel. You were applying for that job. Well, Kevin Racky was applying for that job or a similar sort of a job with Delta Energy Company.
Right. That was with TransAlta. So we would have
TransAlta.
been like on 13th, that hotel on 13th Ave across the street from TransAlta, and they were doing a big round of hiring for new grads. So I was applying for the environmental and sustainability role, and he must have been doing like an EIT.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. So I hooked up with Racky. He was a friend of mine in my class, and he was dating a good friend of yours. Now they're married for forever now, I guess. And
20 years.
It's incredible. But anyways, he's like, oh, Paige is downstairs. Like, oh, really? So I went down, and we chatted a little bit. And we had a really nice chat, because you just got back from India. You're telling me these really great stories. Then after that, we actually started becoming a little bit better friends, which is kind of cool. We get to hang out a little bit more in Calgary, just being newbies in the city, making our way, that sort of thing. And then incidentally, just independently from you and I too, I started being friends with Keith, who you were dating in university, and then now you've been with for married for
19 years.
19 years. It's just about
coming up on 20.
Because he was a good friend of Sean Junior's from high school, and I worked for Sean Junior, so I started hanging out with him a little bit too, which is kind of funny, independently from that. So kind of got you from both ways.
Small world. I love it.
And then I remember running into you just before your wedding on the street or something like that. And I think I told you because I wasn't going to your wedding. That was fine. He had a huge wedding, but you said you should come. It's like, because I told you, oh yeah, that's right. Because I was going to be in Saskatoon that weekend. It was like Thanksgiving weekend. And I was like, oh, I'm going to Saskatoon. She said, oh, I'm getting married. You should come to the wedding. So I crashed your wedding. It was so much fun. Thank you. Of the dance and stuff. So that was kind of cool. And then I went and partied with Keith. Well, not Keith, because he was with you, but Keith's buddies. So Junior, Mark, all those guys. And then also
perfect.
Some of the bridal party, including your sister. And
we went to the bar. I didn't know that part either.
I went back to those guys' house over on McCurcher.
Right. I heard there was quite the party there afterwards.
It was. And she doesn't remember me from that either. So.
Oh, really?
No. So I thought that was kind of funny, because then when I met her again for the third time, and I was playing that guitar in that bar in Martelou, and nobody was there except for you and Keith, and he brought your sister over to watch me play guitar, which was so nice. I don't mind. I wouldn't mind playing for nobody, because it was always kind of nice just to play in a bar. But it's really nice to see you there. And I was like, ooh, this girl, okay, she's gonna remember me now. Damn it. And that's nailed it. She fell in love.
And then it started there.
Fell in love at third sight, that one. So
I didn't realize that was third sight. I thought that was first sight. I knew that you were I remember you at our wedding, and we talked now about that. That would have been an opportunity for you to have met my dad at the wedding, right? Or
I don't think I ever remember seeing him. Well, I'm sorry, not talking with him, but I remember seeing him because he was obviously there.
Right.
Didn't talk to him at all, though. Well, it's a wedding, right? So,
so can we continue the story? And then, so we're at the bar. You're playing music. There's the three of us there.
Yeah.
I remember
Cook was there too, so there was four.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then Amber was living with us at the time, so the three of us come home, and she asks me about you.
Oh.
I was like, oh, Rob, yeah, okay. And then that was kind of it as far as I knew. And then can I tell the story of how I found out that the two of you were together?
No, I'm going to tell my part of it, and then you tell about that, because we did get together.
Okay, deal.
So I was like, oh, I
Yeah.
like this girl. You know what? That's pretty nice. I'm gonna pop in to see her because she was working out at a dinosaur park. She would visit you during the middle of the week, which is her weekends. She was a tour guide and that sort of thing. And so I was driving by there, so I'll pop in to see her, but she wasn't there. So I left a little message. Hi, Rob. It's Rob. You know, missed you. Maybe I'll see you around again. And then it's left at that. Then I started blogging. Had a blog that
Right.
Keith read my blog, and I made a little comment about how I was playing guitar at a bar during Stampede, and my friend and her husband and her cute little sister were there, and or something like that.
Oh
And I put
yeah.
that in there deliberately because I knew Keith would see it, and he would send it to her, and that's exactly what happened.
Oh, there was a lot more plotting than I realized in this
Yeah, I was
story.
pretty sneaky about that. But then, then August long weekend was coming up, and I was like, well, I have no plans. Why don't I go there? It's actually a really nice little place. I can go camping, and maybe she'll hang out with me. Maybe she won't. Who knows, right? But I'll go camping. My last little chance with her, but also just enjoy the weekend. So while I was doing that,
Good for you.
got an email from her. Hey, how you doing? And I was like, how did she know that I was going to go camping? But then I realized, she saw my blog, and then she's like, so we actually emailed a couple times. Then we went out and we met at the dinosaur park, and said, oh, all right, this is pretty cool. So we started dating at that point. We didn't tell you though.
No,
So
you did
Paige,
not.
so Paige, what happened? How did you find out about us?
Oh, it was not through blogs or emails or anything like that. So like you mentioned, she would come and stay with us on her days off, which were like, I think a Tuesday, Wednesday, or any midweek. And
Midweek.
yeah, so I remember coming home from work and walking in my back door, and the way that I walked in was like kind of behind our couch. So the couch was
we're facing the other
positioned
way,
to look at
away from the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't know that it was the two of you. So I walk in, I've had a long day at work. I look at the couch, I see my sister on the couch, and I see this man, tall man, dark, curly, like dark hair, kind of this roughly the same build as my husband, sitting very close to my sister
Right
on the couch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, arm around her. And I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. My sister and my husband.
Yeah.
Like
your mind said that, but you just went like this, and you just walk back.
Oh, was I good? Okay, because I was freaking out.
I was like, you're freaking her out.
Well, because I had no idea you were not the person that I thought. So when I realized it was one, not my husband, I was thrilled. And then when I realized it was you, I was like so happy, and also like, yeah, that's right. That's right. Those two should be together.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So, we're both ready to start seeing someone who liked each other too, and it's good. Like again, because if you know a family member, it really helps out with the process a little bit. Anyways, you know, it's something. So yeah, it was pretty funny that we freaked you out. Anyways, I enjoyed that part of it too. So yeah, and then it was kind of cool because then I got to be friends together with you guys quite a bit, and then incidentally with Keith, he's sort of related to my brother Jason's wife as well too. So
that's right,
like second cousin or something like that. And then the six of us actually kind of started being friends a little bit too, and that was a really nice for a few years there while we were still in Calgary. It was really nice.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Really nice time in my life. I really look back on that fondly. So that we used to play games night together and stuff. It was so much fun.
That was so much fun.
Maybe someday.
In your mission apartment.
A crappy little apartment of mine. So, all right. So then, meanwhile, you're an engineer. So you're working, you have your engineering, and you started at this point in your career, you've been working with some oil companies and oil sand companies, I guess. Mid 2000s?
Yeah. So I started with an electricity company.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, because TransAlta's electricity, so hydro, coal, gas.
Right. Yeah.
And did that for 4 or 5 years and worked in their environment department. And then from there, yeah, switched over to oil sands like 2006.
Okay.
So things were just starting to heat up in oil sands, and had a great run there. Like that was nation building stuff, right? That
Yeah.
was, I have great memories of that team and just working on mega projects.
Yeah.
And then 2011, I switched over to a different oil sands company, kind of smaller and in situ instead of mining. And then about 3 months after being there, I had to tell them I was pregnant. So that was a surprise. And then I was there until 2017. And then chose to leave then. And so I've been up to lots of different things since.
You sure have. It's been a hell of a run this last few years with you, but it's been a journey, a long time in the making as well, too. So while you're working these places, you also were dreaming, if you will, about your future together with as a family and what you wanted as a family, which I didn't realize it was that long, but your dream was to find a home, sort of a home for a family to build somewhere outside the city, or a vacation home, or something like that. Now, you and Keith both grew up. Your parents built homes on lakes in Saskatchewan, two different lakes, right? So that was obviously a big part of your life, hey, like from your memories and good parts of your childhood.
Yeah, those are my best memories, is summers at the Saskatchewan lake, right? The being outside and the freedom and just the fun. So we wanted to create something similar for our kids to have that legacy. So yeah, you're right. It was like shortly after we got married, we started talking about it, and it was 10 years of mulling it over and searching before we really got into the weeds, I guess, or the process.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Like, because I just finished reading this again. So this is your book. I bought it online initially. There it is. Oh, you even got. See, I dog ear all mine. I write in the margins because that's what I do. You're such a project manager. You have all tabs.
Oh, I truly am.
But like, you like towards the end, for example, you counted up all the hours you put into it. But you did talk counting the hours of you just conceptualizing exactly what you wanted in a home. Like, you talk about the design part, but you spent years and years and years. What do I want? In conversations that you probably would have had with Keith. Yeah, taking those long rides back to Saskatchewan, I can imagine. Lots of ideas flowing through your head, and hours in the car together. Think about this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me.
And it was good.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm listening.
It was good to have that, because as our lives went on and we got busy with careers and kids and activities, it was good to have something in common to talk about, to have what would be a shared project, and something that we both wanted. So I think one of my we're stronger as a couple having gone through the process, for sure.
Yeah. It sounds like it, yeah, too. And Amber and I watched a lot of those, well, as much as you did too, right? Those shows on HGTV about, design your dream home, and bring these designers in, and half an hour later, here it is, it's all done. And they always talk about, like, what do you want? Oh, do you like this veneer? What kind of colors do you like? You want it more open, or you want it more cozy? And it's like, that's not how you do it. At least that's sort of an imaginary thing. And you get for a half an hour format or whatever it is, like, that's what you have to do to make entertaining television.
Right.
But you can attest that is not the process that you went through. You didn't think about, well, I just want to have a nice home and with a fireplace, and those components might have been there, but that's not what those core things that drove the whole process, I suppose, or the values. So you talk a lot about first principles.
Mm-hmm.
That's throughout your book that you read. And the book is about your building your dream home, essentially. I guess I should mention that to my guest. Hi. So So that was interesting. First principles, is that a language that you would use in, say, project management or an engineering part of engineering world? Or how, like, where does that term come from?
Right.
What does it
So
mean?
both. It comes from both worlds. And yeah, going back to what you said for like making those decisions of like, do I want dark veneer or light veneer on my cupboards? Those are more superficial decisions, right? And if
Yeah,
you get bogged down in every single one of them, you're just gonna really be exhausted from decision fatigue, which is what I talk about in the book. So one of the ways that we avoided that was to
right.
focus on first principles, and that absolutely comes from the engineering world. So even as far back as like when we were in engineering school together, do you remember you'd get a problem and you'd have to say, okay, these are my knowns
Yeah,
and these are my assumptions, right?
yeah,
So we used that same process of like, okay, what is at the absolute core of what we want to create, and then what are the assumptions that we think are necessary but they aren't. So
yeah,
as an example, we wanted to have a green home or a sustainable home. So that became one of our first principles. And so one assumption is, oh, well, you must have solar panels to make that happen.
right.
Well, no, because a green home is about using resources efficiently. So that's the difference between an assumption and a first principle.
Yeah, so
And so
it
a
gets you
lot of our
moving.
conversations, right, right. So a lot of our conversations at the start were about those, what is the life we're trying to create with this? And so what are the principles that get us to that life?
Yeah,
So reverse engineering it backwards. So we kind of talked through the building, we talked through the end product before we built the end product. And that comes both from engineering and project management, and also a little bit from like just both of our educational backgrounds, right? We were both raised and went to school in the Catholic school system. And so you talk a lot about what are your values there. So
yeah,
when we first had kids, we talked about like, what are our family values? And so we use that same approach to say, okay, what are our values going to be for this joint project?
yeah. So when you're having a dream, there's nothing wrong with having a dream. There's nothing wrong with having that vision. But you have to
Mm-hmm.
articulate it to a certain degree, and you have to be specify what you can. If it's possible to specify it, then you specify it. This is what I want. These are the must-haves that are underlying it. You must have written those down. I take it earlier on in the process at some point, or did you, like these first principles that you would have? Like, did you write them down and then go back to them, revisit them from time to time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we started with like, what do we want the place to look like? So we would say things like, well, we want every kid to have their own bedroom as
Yeah,
an example. So we kind of talked about the specifications of the house, but then from there we said, okay, well, what does that actually mean? Okay, well, we want every kid to have their own bedroom because we want this to be a place that's going to last our family for 40 years. So we want every
yeah,
kid to be able to come there with their spouse and their kids eventually and have their own space. So that's how we got to the values. Um, and then, sorry, I forgot what the rest of the question was.
well, that was pretty much it, I guess. Like that's what I wanted to know was these, you develop these principles and then you would revert back to them
Yeah,
during the
absolutely. Of
process,
like,
right? So like if we have to make a
mm-hmm.
decision at this point, you would have to go back there. Like, is this going against our first principle or not? Or is it support a first principle or is it neutral
Yeah,
towards it?
and it was so helpful to have that when we got into making all the bazillion small decisions that there are to make, right? So
Yeah,
what color should the cabinets be, or what kind of siding should we have on the house? Well, we wanted, one of our values was we wanted it to be low maintenance. Okay, well, what's the
right.
lowest maintenance option that we have? Done. And then we can move on. So it
Yeah,
really saved us a lot of emotional effort, I think, on the decision making, because otherwise, and I hear it from my friends that have built custom homes, is you just kind of, you're exhausted, right? It's stressful because of the number of decisions to be made, not because any of the decisions are life and death decisions.
yeah, yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah. So again, if you're one of the things that you were looking at was having a weight room. You know, you guys are both like to stay fit, and this is my favorite image. And I loved in your book whenever you mentioned Keith because it's like, oh, that's totally Keith. when you talked about him or wherever you quoted him, and you had him, right?
Oh, good.
You had him walking around with his hands
I
up
did.
to see how tall it
I
would be
did. Yep.
to the ceiling.
Yep.
And I was like, Keith would do that. So
Bless him. Yes, he did. Because I needed to know how high he would lift,
yeah.
and then the weights on top of it, right? So
yeah. How do you figure that out?
Yeah.
Well, there's one way
Details.
to do it. Yep. So it's funny that but when you're doing that, you're acting it out. So you're acting out, you're actually taking this sort of vague concept and you're articulating it in a way that is concrete. So you can actually write it down, saying this is it, like this is the limit, as an example. And that's one way to look. This is you're not gonna do that for everything.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna make him, well, maybe you did. I don't know, make him walk around with his arms out or something like that. But that's part of the sort of the process of design that all has to kind of come in ahead of time, and you have to have these principles formed, and then before you can kind of move on there.
Right.
Yeah. Did you do that? I'm not sure if you did that during the siting process. So when you were looking for a place, did you do that too, or were you just looking for a property to anything? Like it sounds like you drove around, saw a lot of properties over the years.
Oh Lord, yes. We covered a lot of ground. Yeah, we looked everywhere within an 8-hour radius of Calgary. So Idaho, Montana, Saskatchewan, Northern Alberta. And for the longest time, we didn't look at BC. So that the home is located in Windermere, BC. And for the longest time, we didn't look there because in my mind, the mountains are cold and I want to be warm.
But I didn't realize.
Girl.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah. I need my hot summers, right? Yeah. And so then I talked a little bit about how originally we were gonna build a house in Calgary and then have a small cabin somewhere. And we realized that was a dream that we weren't willing to make happen. So we expanded out our area and we started to look in BC a little bit, and I found that it had the things that we were looking for. So we had gone through that same process for selecting the lot that we ultimately did with building the home, right? We had our core values or principles that we wanted. We wanted to be on the water or close to water. We wanted to have hot summers. We wanted it to be 4 seasons. Yeah. We wanted it to be within an established community because we wanted that feel of community, right? That neighborhood, go outside and play with your friends. And it took us a lot of time and searching to finally find that. And we didn't do it on our own. So I don't think we would have found the place if it wasn't for the person, like the realtor that we worked with. Because so we had found a lot in Vermeer, and so that's why we drove out to take a look at that lot, and it had a really, really steep pitch to it. So it was essentially you're buying air, not land, and then you'd have to build up from that.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't picture that, right? Like coming from Saskatchewan where everything's flat, it was just foreign to me. So we were talking to our realtor about here's the vision that we have for our place. And then he said, well, I think I know a community for you. And so he took us to the lot, and it wasn't for sale at the time. They had pulled it off the market. And the minute that we got there, like the kids loved it, Keith loved it, I fell in love with it. Yeah. And then it was a waiting game of like, okay, it is eventually going to come back on the market. And the day that it did, we bought it, like within five hours, done.
You knew what you wanted. Nice little place. Yeah, mountains are tricky, right? And, I'm a prairie boy too, right? So it's mostly mountains. Like it's mostly undeveloped. So the land there is quite scarce. So when something, you have to know exactly what you want, and then when it comes time, you have to make that decision and make it really quickly, right? So
there was a flip side to that too, though, that we knew what we wanted, but we also didn't know what we were getting into. And that's really what, right? Like, oh my gosh, like 4 years from buying the lot to being able to move in. So that's why I wrote the book of like, oh, here's all the things I should have known, or I wish I would have known before we got into it. But so we bought it a little bit on faith of like, oh, we'll figure it out.
the reason why I like your book, it's pretty cool because it's quite anecdotal. It's a case study, is what it is, but it also outlays sort of a thinking process because custom homes, by definition, they are unique to each other, right? And so you cannot write a how-to book to build a custom home. You can only provide sort of a process. This is a good process to go through. These are things you should be thinking about. So when you're thinking about, like, again, like for home or HGTV type homes, they're just thinking about veneers or, should you knock out this wall? You're thinking, well, permitting, that's a big one. Who do you want to build your home? Do you go RTM? Do you go modular? Do you go, like you call it, Lego design, where you just custom do the walls and ship them in? There's different ways of doing that. And every approach, like, there's nothing wrong with an RTM home in and of itself, but it's like, it has to fit whatever kind of goals you have there. So these are kind of things that you gotta think about, and which is kind of cool because you actually outline it a little bit. These thinking about what kind of home should be built, or your green design. You talk a little bit about the green design too. Again, solar panels. Does it have to be solar panels? And you realize your thought process. Well, no, it actually doesn't really quite fit into what we're looking for. As long as we have really good insulation, windows that work really well, and the walls, the layout of the home, in terms of structuring, and then also vertically, right? Because heat rises, and you want to make it as passive as possible too. So you kind of talk through that thinking process. And as a project manager or as a builder of a dream home, like that's actually the skills that they have to develop. You don't have to know all the answers, but you got to be able to think through the process, and you highlight some of the things. You maybe should be thinking about this. You maybe should be thinking about this. And they're going to have their own problems. Whoever builds a dream home, they read your book, but they're going to have their own problems. But
that's true. And I like the way that you say that, because I've described the book as being a cheat sheet for doing a custom house.
It is.
And it is.
They see your mistakes, and they like, well, wait, I don't have to do that.
Oh yeah. And you're right that it's also about the process, though, too.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's more of the value, is to understand the full process, because the construction part in itself was actually quite short compared to the rest of it, right? The construction was a year.
That surprised me, to be honest. Yeah.
But it was because we'd done all that work up front on design and permitting, that construction could tick along quite seamlessly. And it's funny. So my builder has read the book, and he made the comment. Yeah. He made the comment of it was good for him to see what it's like to be a homeowner of a custom home, because after a while in the construction industry, it's a house to them. It's not a home. Yeah. And for us, it was a home. So he got to be reminded of all of the effort and decision-making from the homeowner side of things, or the project management. The money management took way more effort, and was a lot more like juggling of balls than I expected.
Yeah, you even outlined some of those things. Like, do you let the builder finance it for you, or you do it yourself? And then you throw in the added challenge of the fact that you did it in a different jurisdiction, so that your bank probably, like, if you're building a home in Alberta where you live, it may not have had those issues. Might have been able to just go to your local bank and get some help. And jumping jurisdictions like that is crazy. And then you have to understand the politics, which you also outlined too, like how much politics affects people's homes. In the middle of a project, and then the provincial government threatens essentially the viability of the home there with the new tax that they're going to put on. Unexpected, right? And that can happen anywhere. But if you're in your home province, maybe you can anticipate and prepare for that a little bit quicker than you would in, say, a different province as well too, because it's a different fish, because you're not dealing with people that are 3 hours away. You're dealing with people who are in Vancouver, basically making these decisions rather than whereas Windermere, like half the people are from Calgary or nearby that have those vacation homes there. It's a different sort of different world, right? So again, those are considerations that if you're building a new home, you got to think about, or at least consider. You maybe don't know all the answers, but it's like, it could come up and bite you. So you also wore a number of different hats, which is pretty cool. I'm really proud of you.
Oh, thanks.
But you first called yourselves
intentionally.
Would you guys call yourselves co-directors? No, you wrote it down.
Yes, co-directors.
You and Keith are co-directors. All right. And you guys each were engineers, but you also have different strengths, different interests, and different approaches to things too, which is beneficial, right? Because you have two different viewpoints whenever you're making these decisions to try to combat it out a little bit.
True.
Right. Fight it out. So you were co-director, so then you're owners together, but then you were the project manager. Keith wasn't the project manager. Not that Keith didn't do any project management as part of the project, but you were the one kind of the main focal point for the project, were you not? Were you the one talking to the designer more? Were you the one talking to the builder a bit more?
I was, and we had to be really clear about that because there was a couple of missteps that we had early on in the process where I wanted something, he wanted something. We both told the designer that, and then she's left to saying like, which one do I go with? And I talk a little bit in the book about how both our builder and our designer kind of felt like marriage counselors at times, right? Of like helping to tease out, okay, what do the two of you truly want? But that's, that's a practice in project management of being clear about the communication. So I was the one that dealt with our builder and the point of contact for all the trades and managed it that way. And then we had to, because you talk to your spouse different than you would another, like a work colleague, right? So we were very careful we learned the hard way to be pretty careful about, okay, right now we're going to talk about the house and we're co-directors on the house.
Yeah.
Whereas then we would become, and then we talk about husband and wife. Because otherwise, I think I talk a little bit about, we were trying to size the windows and I wanted it a certain size. He wanted a certain size and we didn't align on that. And I thought like, well, you don't appreciate all the work that I've done and all the thought I've put into this. He's thinking, you're not listening to me and I'm not getting the input. So we're kind of like blending, what we often fight about or discuss in the project. So we had to be pretty clear of like, okay, now is the time to be co-directors on the house and we'll make those decisions. And then I need a certain amount of freedom and flexibility as a project manager. Because if you're always running everything back and forth between two people, it wouldn't have taken us 4 years, right? It would have taken us more than that.
Yeah.
Just because life is busy.
Yeah. So it's about verbalizing and communicating the roles that you're playing and the hats, again, you're wearing at any one time. And I can imagine a lot of spouses. Well, you're a spouse. Well, everyone's seen the movie The Money Pit. If they haven't, they should.
I know. Hey.
The movie resonates. I don't think it was that true to life. But you can attest, it was probably that true to life.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because I thought of that movie often. And I thought like this house is the updated Money Pit movie. That's often how I thought of it. Like it needs to be updated for the next generation. And this is it. This is the story for it.
Yeah. So with your co-director and then project management, he built a team and you talked a lot about your team. I think he had a lot of nice things to say about your team. You had a designer, you had a builder. It turned out that you had a banker that you didn't realize, but that person was major part of your team.
She was.
It's good to kind of set that up early on as well too, right? Like and
all of those are typical in a typical building process. And then we had some specialized team members that because we had a custom home, we needed them. So we needed a structural engineer. And then because we chose to do a passive house using high performance principles, we used a certain carpentry company that was able to manufacture the walls for us. So I'd say the more custom, the more like we could believe that they were gonna be out to like take all our money and blow our budgets. But these people love what they do, right? So they wanted to create something that was awesome as well.
Yeah, that's kind of nice too. they're also very expensive marriage counselors, so you want to make sure they get them right. So,
Oh, when you put it that way,
yeah.
yes, so true.
One thing I liked about it, and
Good
again,
point.
not a lot of custom home builders can have this option, but you have this option. You didn't want to do it, was to be actually act as an engineer in your own project, namely with the site development and running an environmental assessment on the property. And you did that, and you had the skills to do it, but you'd never done anything quite like that though before. Tell me about being an environmental engineer on your own property. Oh,
Yeah, that was unexpected
yeah,
and done out of necessity.
yeah,
And now obviously I'm glad that I did it. So that was, even though I'd worked in environmental management for almost 20 years before the project, this is the first project that I actually ever stamped, like that I used my
really,
professional
hey?
seal on. It is.
So, hey,
So
wow,
yeah, interesting.
that is
And
interesting.
so I'm glad for it. I hadn't planned on doing the work because it was remote and I wasn't familiar with the area at first. And then as I was looking for somebody to do the work, I realized like, oh, actually, I do have the background and the knowledge to do this work.
Yeah, you're smart enough.
And
You're
that,
skilled. You can do that.
yeah, but it took me a while to get there, right?
Yeah,
It took me a while on the confidence side, and then also in terms of, because engineers hold have professional obligations to society, right? So
yeah,
we need to demonstrate that first and foremost we're protecting the environment and human health, and so that was important that, I wasn't going to do anything cavalier because I was also the owner, that I was
yeah,
still going to engineering it to those standards. So um, it was great because it gave me an opportunity to do the environmental impact over the 4 seasons, because we lived at the site, or
yeah,
we would go out to the site in the wintertime.
yeah.
And there was real value to that. And now there's been a spin-off where I've started to do that same environmental permitting and design for other homeowners in the area.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny how things kind of
Yeah,
roll along.
yeah. It's a little business you kind of do and help people out too. I know, but you face a bit of pushback from the authorities because they mentioned there was a conflict between being an engineer and the owner, and you could probably see that if the owner was planning on like flipping the house, building a house and just moving it on. Whereas you were like, no, we're going to be here for 40 years. And if I'm going to do it, I want it done properly and it's going to be done right. From an ethical point of view, they were kind of concerned about that, but you backed it up with, like you said in your book, you said, no, I got the data
Yep.
and the evidence for it. I said, no, this is done properly, right? But you know what I mean? Like that's a kind of a weird thing, but I'm kind of glad that they were able to make a ruling in your favor to get it moving, because it sounds like it was fair, and you are an engineer and you take your job seriously, as an engineer, or not your job, your profession seriously as an engineer.
Right.
So
Right, because it is a profession, right? That you're doing it in service to society or your
yeah,
community. And so the fact that it was for my family home, I wasn't gonna take any shortcuts, and I wasn't gonna, from an engineering perspective, I wasn't gonna do anything differently on the design. It was just different how I thought about it, because when I would think about, the consequences. So for example, the consequences of the creek flooding and
yeah,
everything rolls down the mountain and you know, floods the valley, I could picture who that would impact. And it was my
yeah,
husband and my kids and myself, right? Like it just made the consequences of the engineering design were more personal.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that was pretty cool that you're doing that you did. It's so funny because we
Oh, the
all we all take
things you do.
engineering. We all do our engineering, but very few of us actually do that engineering out of engineering school. We do engineering to support projects or whatever it is, but that whole
Right.
stamp thing, like, I'm not a professional engineer, even though I got my degree, and a lot of people just, it's a very useful degree and it gets you in the conversation, but it's kind of nice when you actually put that stamp there and say, no, I engineered this and I did my
Yes.
assessment. It's done
Yeah.
properly, and pat myself on the back.
Well, and I think
take
I
that, Lee
learned,
Barber. So,
yeah, I
that's what Lee
learned
Barber.
that was the engineering that I liked. So there's, in my mind, there's
Yeah.
kind of two types of engineering. There's like the engineering that involves creativity, which is the design.
Yeah.
And then there's the engineering for control. So that's like factor of safety and quality control and making sure compliance.
Yeah.
And when I was working oil and gas, my world was very much more on the compliance side. And I learned like
Right.
actually engineering for creativity is, I really enjoy it.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to you about financing a bit.
Oh, okay.
I think it's something that nobody really wants to talk about, but it is such an important part of your home, building a home there too. And you use the phrase, and you mentioned a couple times, double the time, double the money for building custom homes. Was that an accurate assessment, that rule of thumb, double the time, double the money?
I think it's a fair rule of thumb to go in with. Absolutely. And I learned that if it's a custom home, it might be more than double the money.
Yeah, it's such a tough consideration too, and you guys done pretty well with your careers, but you're talking about your cash flow too. Like, it's one thing to have the credit available; it's another thing to have cash flow. And there's points there really it was very very tight for you to get through, like in order to make have room on your credit card just to
Oh,
get to the next
yes.
stage of the mortgage. Clearing the hurdles of the mortgage to gain more funds, right? So yeah, that must have been
Yeah.
pretty tough on you guys.
Well,
Right.
that was tough. That was tough on me, right? Because I was the
Yeah.
project manager. So absolutely, it was stressful to be in the flooring store and like not have access to the $2,000 to make a down payment to actually get flooring. Like
Yeah.
literally playing roulette with my cards to try and find a credit card or a debit card that I could put that on. So like buying a home is all about how much, and
Yeah.
building a home is about cash flow.
Cash flow. Yeah. So you got to have the access to that. And then again, if you have to make those decisions, you want to be able to have that adequate amount of cash flow. So you can make those decisions in the flooring store. Like $2,000 isn't nothing, but it's like, most people can just walk with a credit card and pay for $2,000 and walk out of there. But it's a different thing when you're like, well, can I do that? Can I do that?
Right.
And I have to make the decision right away. What am I going to do? And you don't really do things on layaway either, a lot of these places. So for those types
No,
of products.
that was interesting to me, of like so many of the vendors wanted like 50% upfront, right?
Right.
50% deposit upfront, but then we wouldn't get reimbursed from our mortgage until it was actually installed. So
Yeah.
there was a huge lag between those two time periods. So yeah, I felt like
Yeah.
I was always juggling for cash flow.
Yeah, that's such a good thing. Well, vendors, yeah, there's probably a good reason for that. Well, they're the ones in business because the other ones didn't do that, and that's why they're out of
True.
business in part, anyways. Yeah, so
True.
that's a good consideration again for homes. Um, is there any other stories you want to share at all? Because I was going to kind of get into where you're going now a little bit with the Dream Home Confessions. So
Oh, well, let's do that. Let's talk about what happens next.
yeah, so you got that home. Oh, I should mention too, it's available for rent. It's on
It
Airbnb.
is.
That again, that's what I was going to mention about financing too. It's kind of nice to have that option because you built this beautiful home in this desirable place, vacation place in the world, and you took that in mind, and then you designed it with Airbnb in mind, or to rent it out in mind. And by doing so, that could help pay for COVID aside, but we'll be able to finance your home a little better, right? It's a little more affordable down,
Right.
pays your mortgage a bit better, eh? So
Yeah, and we did that both for mortgage, but also because being a relatively large family with 4 kids and enjoying being able to hang out with family and friends for vacation, there wasn't a lot of options out there for like a large home that would fit 2 or 3 families.
right.
Because we would go on vacation with friends and everybody has their individual condo. And then you put the kids to bed and you're like, well, now what do we do? So it was partially also shaped by that, of wanting to be able to have a place where our friends can come and join us, or offering something in the market that there isn't a lot of being able to have either multi-generational or 2 or 3 families. And then the other part of it was, we didn't want to be there all of the time. Like, we still love Saskatchewan and wanted to be able to come back. And so renting the place out gives us the freedom and kind of the, we don't feel so emotionally tied to the place, that we can still go and travel and do other things.
Yeah, you have guilt that, oh man, we pay for this place and it's an expensive place,
right?
We go here, but now it's like, well, no, people are there, it's getting used and it's getting value, even if you're not there at times, right? So especially in those peak summer months or whenever people are traveling around. I do appreciate the fact that there are extra rooms, because we haven't been there yet, and it just bugs the hell out of me that we haven't been there yet. We were going to go last summer, but then COVID, and we're like, eh. And it was actually during the time where everyone's like, if you leave the province, come back, and there's pitchforks and tiki torches outside your door. So I didn't want to be involved in that group, but I think this summer we're going to go no matter what. We're going to go for
good. I'm thrilled to hear that. Yeah, we look forward to having you out there, and you and Amber will have your own bedroom on the main floor and your own ensuite, and there's lots of room for the kids because there's 6 bedrooms in total.
6 bedrooms and multiple beds too, right? Like, don't kids have, like, there's extra beds in some of the kids' rooms, or no?
Yep, the 3 of the kids have, so they have like a double bed on the bottom, and then they have a bunk up top.
Yeah, so my boys can go bunk with them, eh? Like, if they
totally
want. Yeah,
totally. They have their own bathroom, and we'll open up the door and they can just run out and go to the lake and go to the creek and go to the playground, and it'll be awesome.
It's been too long since we've got together, so we're gonna have to do that soon. We'll bring some board games up for you, and probably have a few there, but we'll bring some anyways.
Sounds good.
Stuff. So then
we have a poker table, so we can have poker nights.
There's some more people up there. I don't know. We can pack a few people in there, I think. Hey,
sounds good.
If we had to. So then so that's one of the businesses that comes out of it, though. Fortunately enough for you, so it's a good experience for you to be owners of an Airbnb type rental facility. But then also you're looking at helping other people with their process. I guess that's another reason why we're talking here, is to help people who've ever thought about building their own home, a dream home. It doesn't have to be a vacation home, although that's the example that you did. The experience that you had. Well, I'm just going to say the experience that you got from this too. It's a shame that you can't build a dream home every 5 years, because now you can probably do it a lot better. But I
wonder,
but you still have the opportunity to share it with other people anyways. I think people should hear that. So what are your thoughts about helping other people if they're looking for help in building a custom home?
Well, that's really how the book came about, right? So the book is Dream Home Confessions, and it's kind of a full disclosure of all my mistakes and my failures. And I am tempted to try it again in a couple of years, both the building and then even writing the book, because what appears in the book is about half of what my actual experience was. So I cut a lot out of it. I wanted to offer that to folks of like, okay, here is one roadmap of how it's done. And then from there, I am doing some consulting work, mainly in the Valley, for environmental permitting and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And the book itself, it's not too long. It's you can get through it. If somebody wants to get into it, I think it's worthwhile. If you're building a home, read it and realize you don't have to be perfect. And it's gonna
definitely
be
not.
You're gonna get messy, but you can get through it. And you develop a few good coping strategies in there to consider, the way you talk to people or how you visualize things. You're talking about like how there's a movie. What does a movie in your head look like? I thought that was kind of a cool way of putting it. Say, like, what does your movie say about having a deck? How's a deck going to be used in the movie that's in your head? Because the movie that you see is different than what Keith would see and maybe what the builder would see as well. So that was kind of a cool
and that's a great.
Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear more about your movie. Your
Well,
head
that
movie.
was a great, yeah, my head movie. It was a great way to get you out, to get us out of our heads, right? It's a great
Yeah,
question to like start the process to articulate, okay, like how do I want this
yeah. And it puts
to look?
action in there too. So it's not just like where's everything placed, but I say no. People want to be walking around through here. This is where we're going to be going through to get to the kitchen. I want access
Hmm.
down to the lake. Well, do we want it by this particular location because I wanted to put a table there or whatever it is, and then
Right.
it forces the action to life. That's why it's a movie and not a snapshot. And that's something it's very difficult to get at when you have your design on paper. You're not seeing the movement of flow, and you can, if you want to get software to do that kind of stuff, it's available, but it ain't cheap. But so some ways you want to be able to describe an image, an action through time. What is this going to look like? And
Yeah, I like the way you describe that. I
yeah,
like the way you describe that because the book is really a story, right? It's
it
not
is. It's a story.
it's not a dry manual. And I found a lot of when I was looking for, resources to build the place, there wasn't a lot of story-based resources. So I wrote it in the hopes that it's really almost like a beach read, right? Like if you're
Yeah,
looking for something to read on the beach in the summertime, you're going to get some information and you could laugh at all of my failures along the way. Like it's
yeah.
intended to be entertaining as well.
It's
Of like,
funny. You have your dry sense of humor in there. It's funny as hell. Your mom jokes, like about being a mom and having babies and how gross that can be sometimes, and how you compare that to building a house can be kind of like chaotic and gross at times. Building a house, and it's okay because being a mom is awesome and building a home is awesome too. And
true.
right, as crazy as it is, it can be just such a wonderful, enlightening, um, just heartwarming experience through it all. And I think you capture that really well in your book. Like, there's
I'm glad to hear that.
a lot of love in there, and humor, and you need it because there are times when you
That's
don't
good.
feel it. I'm sure.
No. Well, and it was scary to write it as well, right? Because it is a very honest
Yeah,
reflection of our experience.
yeah. There's so many of these self-help books, and like, if you can dream it, you can do it, which is such bullshit. It's like, no, you can dream it,
Yeah.
sure. Doing it is you can't just say you got to do it. You got to like have more than just do it. It's more than
No,
that.
right?
And know that if there's a will,
Effort
there's
and
a way. But
skills.
yeah, it's those trite kind of statements. You got to show like, no, this is tough. But then you also got to show there's hope in it, and there's hope, and you can figure
Hmm.
the stuff out. And you have a lot of challenges there. It's like, how the hell are you going to get through that? And then you got through it. You make compromises. You figure it out. You find
Yeah.
solutions. You get resourceful. Talk to somebody else if this guy is going to help you out. Like, there's always a way to kind of get through this, and there's always a way to do that, but you have to be persistent. You got to keep your head. Helps to have a good partner. I'll tell you that
Yeah.
much.
I have to tell you, it reminds me of something. So I've been listening to your other podcasts, which
Ah,
are so enjoyable.
it's so much
Um,
fun.
and there was, yeah, yeah. And like the people from Saskatchewan are so interesting. So thank you for sharing that. Of
Yeah,
like, I've learned things about people that I know that I didn't know before. And just to like get to hear about your friend group is really cool. And so you said something
yeah.
on one of your podcasts. It was Driven to Succeed, was it?
Well, is that the Kendall Netmaker one?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, what
So
a great guy he
so
is. Holy
oh,
cow.
so interesting.
Yeah.
And then the two of you, when you were talking about how the your motto when you went to Notre Dame, that the motto was struggle then emerge. Is that the right?
Yeah. Lukter et emergo. Struggle and emerge. That's what it was. You
So
struggle and then you rise up. You emerge.
yeah. And I heard that and I thought like that is a very good
Oh, isn't it good?
description of this book. It is about the struggle, and I get that like to be able to build a custom home is a tremendously fortunate thing to do. but there's struggle there, and then how we emerged from it.
You know, honestly, you don't emerge without a struggle. There's no point in emerging without a struggle. The struggle is just as important as the emergence from that struggle. That's the whole point. Well, that's the whole freaking point of life, isn't it? Life is goddamn suffering, and our job is to control suffering, right?
Yep, personal responsibility.
And Notre Dame, man, I was always homesick. And at my last podcast with this buddy of mine from high school, and I talked a little bit about it. I was very, very lonesome and had a very difficult time there, but I knew I had to get through it because it's like the option was going back home and then ending up working on the rigs and staying at home. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I wanted more, or I wanted something else in my life. And if I hadn't gone there, I would not have gone to university and, you know, changed the course of my life. And, you know, if I had that opportunity to do that. So I knew the struggle was there. And I told myself every day, struggle and emerge, struggle and emerge. There's a reason why I'm doing this. Yeah. So when you want to mature, that's what you have to do. And for you, you grew into somebody that you weren't before. You know what I mean? Like you've emerged. You're a different, you're a transformed person to a degree, right? And they can't take that away from you. So now, you know, you don't know where this is going to take you, but by just going through this kind of project and the suffering that you put yourself through, all of a sudden now you don't even have just another home, but you also have a different outlook on life, and you also have more opportunities than you had before, which is pretty damn cool. Like imagine where you were 5 years ago to where you are now. Because I don't think you really knew where you were 5 years ago, or at least I remember we had some good conversations with, because you were still working and, you know, do I keep doing this? You know, they pay well and it's a good career, and or do I do something else? And now all of a sudden, all this world is kind of opening up to you, and you have a lot of these little possibilities. And into the, you know, you're on the second half of your career arc essentially at this point, and you've already built some more opportunities for yourself, which is really cool. And,
thank you.
Yeah, so not everybody has it. Let's say have a chance. Not everybody does that in their careers, and maybe they don't have to, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for you, you did it. You answered your question. What do I do? Well, you did it, and now you know.
Yeah.
What do you do
and
next?
it was scary to leave that, you know, my corporate job and focus on this, and I have several other projects that I was working on at the same time. But yeah, I could see my trajectory if I stayed there in 5 years, kind of like you could see that if you didn't finish at Notre Dame, where you would end up. And so, yeah, I needed to take the leap into something else. And so now having, you know, written a book and starting a publishing company to make the book happen and getting into digital marketing.
Yeah.
I don't know where that's all going to take me, but I think one of the things that you and I have in common is just like the curiosity and the desire to like keep learning stuff, right? Keep exploring and trying new things.
Yeah. I don't know where I'm going either, but you got to keep moving. Got to keep swimming, as Finding Emo says in the movie. So just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
I should have worked that into the book, because I have a lot of like references to water and moving water and analogies between project management and water flows. Yeah, I should have quoted
and waterfalls and all that stuff. Yeah,
that's right. Shoot, I should have quoted that one too.
Just keep
maybe that'll make an appearance in the next book.
Well, if anybody is interested and wants to talk to you a little bit more about like sort of a project and designing not just a dream home or dream projects and that sort of thing, you can help them out a little bit, or maybe they find more information about you. Do you have a website page that they can go to?
I do, yeah, and I would love that. So my website is dreamhomeconfessions.com. Can we put this all in your show notes?
It'll be in the show notes. I'll put it on the screen.
Okay. Yeah. Because then they can reach me at Paige at dreamhomeconfessions.com. And then I'll give you the link for the Airbnb rental as well. And people can see, you know, what this actually looks like at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We'll put that link in there for you too. I think it's well earned, and hope some people take you up on it, because it's not too far from Calgary. It's a nice little drive.
3 hours.
And that's an after work commute, and you have a nice warm bed by the time you get there. And
that's right. Easy for a weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Paige, I think that's enough for us. That was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. It's always a pleasure
Good. I
talking to
did
you,
too.
obviously. So.
Yeah. It was nice to carve out time and talk about this.
I know. I was having such a crazy weekend, but I really wanted to do this. So I'm glad we were able to find that little window that worked for both of us. And
Me too.
And now I'm going to catch a nap because I'm going to go do Telemiracle 44, 45. Telemiracle 40.
That's right. Good luck with that.
Is I'm going to be ringing those phones tonight, answering those phones that you're going to be people hopefully will be ringing this weekend. So.
Oh, I remember all of that.
I got to take phone school actually right now. So there's a phone school.
Oh, hilarious.
Yeah. Well, ring those phones. And
bring those phones.
Say hi to Keith.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, say hi to Keith, and I hope you guys have a wonderful spring, and we'll talk to you again really soon.
We'll talk to plan when you guys are going to come out and visit us.